Hello and welcome to the Raw review here on Wrestling with Regret. Certainly a wild and woolly night on Monday, and I'm sure many of you watching this already know what happened at the end, but we'll get to that when we get to that. We begin, however, tonight with Drew McIntyre's first appearance on Raw since losing the championship at Elimination Chamber. He's here to take on his former best friend, Sheamus. Former best friends implode here tonight. Drew on the microphone beforehand talking about how the frickin' Miz is the one who cashed in the Money in the Bank and beat him for the championship after the Chamber match. He says his plan is to regain the title at WrestleMania. He warns the winner of tonight's title match. The Miz and John Morrison interrupt. Miz gets all the pyro. I love how John Morrison's kind of looking around, just taking it all in, like, yeah, that's a pretty cool pyro. He just looks so happy seeing the pyro and everything. So The Miz says that he's the real victim in all this, and how if Drew should blame anybody for losing the championship, it should be Lashley for jumping in beforehand. And so Miz wants to try and make McIntyre join their group. So Miz, Morrison, McIntyre, the three M egos. But then MVP interrupts. He's got a mic now, and he asks Drew, are you really considering this? And Drew says, you know me well enough to know I'm not. MVP then declares to The Miz he's got until 9 p.m. Eastern tonight to defend the championship, or bad things will happen. He leaves. Then Sheamus comes out, and he also has a microphone. But at this point, I've kind of tuned out because, okay, everyone's got mic time now. So Sheamus is talking, I should say, and then Drew just goes, enough talk, it's time to fight. Yes, I agree. And the match gets underway after commercial break, and they have a pre-commercial break brawl. You know, it's a big boy bash. You know I love these matches, and these guys really deliver here. Everything looks really snug. They're just beating the hell out of each other here. They're fighting on the outside, suplexes on the announce table. They trade, not finishers, but signature moves. They kick out of each of them. And finally, at the end, Sheamus goes to the brogue kick, but Drew hits the Claymore first. Drew pins Sheamus and wins. I loved this match. It was a great pay-per-view quality match we had here. Hope we get to see more of these guys down the road to really flesh out more of their fallout from their friendship having collapsed so. The women's tag champs are in singles matches tonight. First, you've got Nia Jax going against Naomi. Naomi puts up a valiant fight in this relatively short match, but Nia ultimately flattens her with a Samoan drop and a one-arm powerbomb, and she wins the match pretty handily. Pretty open and shut case, and gives her some good momentum for her and Shayna going into their title match on Wednesday. More on what Shayna does later. We get a hype package for the impending arrival of Rhea Ripley. Then it's time for the WWE Championship match as The Miz defends against Bobby Lashley. I was enjoying the countdown timer we saw in this first hour, as well as last week for Miz's first decision. It adds a tangible sense of urgency, and it's not something you can really do every week, but I did like what they did hit with this one, just kind of remind you to give you something to look forward to in that time span. So The Miz's music plays, but he's got a sore tum-tum, and suddenly he's not able to compete. Adam Pearce tries to talk him into going and defending his championship. Lashley has none of this though. He runs to the back, grabs Miz by the face, and says, tonight you will defend your championship, or I'm going to beat your ass. So Pearce makes a new deadline for 10 p.m. tonight. Pretty sneaky, Miz and Morrison. We'll see where this goes. Braun Strowman makes his way to the ring now and is complaining about the man. Shane McMahon and Adam Pearce have some kind of grudge. They're conspiring against him. That Adam and Shane show up at ringside, and Shane tells about Strowman's failure to live up to his own expectations is driving him insane and messing him up. And Shane tells Strowman that in order to resolve this conflict with management, he must team up with somebody in management in this tag team matchup here. So he puts him with Adam Pearce as his tag partner, and Pearce seems to be caught by surprise by this news. But then Shane ups the ante by saying it's going to be for the Raw tag titles, which Strowman does like. They don't mention once on commentary that Strowman's already beaten the Raw tag champions single-handedly at WrestleMania. That's not that doesn't seem to be factoring into what's happening in this match. But as the match goes on, Strowman is single-handedly taking out Cedric and Shelton by himself, and then as he hits a power slam onto Shelton, Shane gets on the apron and yells at Strowman to tag in Pearce, who's been standing there the whole time doing nothing. So Strowman kind of reluctantly tags in Adam Pearce. He goes in for a cover, but Shelton catches him in a small package for the Hurt Business to retain the tag titles. And Strowman's very upset at both Pearce and Shane, but does not really attack either of them. But all I can think about this is, what's going on here? What even is this angle? Is Braun the heel because he's the one who attacked Adam Pearce, they got him suspended in the first place? Is Shane the heel because he's got it out for Strowman and he's trying to talk down to him and stuff? Who's doing what here? I feel there's about 10 different things you could do with Braun right now that are infinitely better than an upcoming feud with Shane McMahon. Backstage, Elias and Jackson Ryker approach Damien Priest and Bad Bunny. Elias says he wants to record a new single with Bad Bunny, and they'll top the charts parts and change the world and everything, and he'll bring Bad Bunny up to his level. And then Bad Bunny says something to Damien Priest in Spanish, and Damien translated it as saying, that's a no. And that's just where it ends. Like, what a definitive stamp to end that segment on. So we go to the match, Elias versus Damien Priest, and Elias, before the match begins, complains that his album, Universal Truth, was snubbed at the Grammys. The match begins, a lot of strikes, lots of moves off the ropes in this one. Things don't really pick up, I don't think, until Elias, like a really vicious looking cutoff here, where he pulls Damien neck first into the rope and gets his heat in. That's when the match really picks up, in my opinion. I was not feeling this match for the first third of it, and then as time went on, it just got more interesting, and I was finally more invested in it. So Jackson Ryker tries to distract. There's some awkward pin attempts, but Damien fights back. He hit the lights to win the match. That, by the way, I was corrected last week. It's not the Reckoning anymore. It's hit the lights. So to say he hit the lights can get kind of annoying. But yeah, like I said, I was not feeling this at first, but they definitely won me over by the end. Kayla Braxton is backstage interviewing Randy Orton. They talk about what happened last week when Orton started spitting up some black goop after being cursed by Alexa Bliss, seemingly. And Orton says, if Alexa wants to avoid a fate like the Fiend's, she needs to get out of his way and move on with her life. We then see the monitor behind Orton showing Alexa sitting, playing with a jack-in-the-box with a pentagram on it. Ooh, careful, mothers, hide your children's eyes. So Alexa cues up a video then that shows a different, a clone of Randy Orton. Somebody, it's Orton, but he's wearing black contact lenses and he's got his voice distorted, so he modulated all deep and stuff. And he tells the real Randy Orton that he's about to come face to face with everything he's ever done. He laughs a maniacal laugh as Orton, the real Orton, watching this, starts coughing. He starts, he's getting sick again with the black goop, and he runs off. You don't see anything, but that's how it ends. I'm very curious about that. What was that supposed to represent? Was that something that Alexa conjured up? Was the Fiend shape-shifting and inhabiting this image of Randy Orton? How are they going to explain that? Will they explain it? Either way, I'm just curious where this whole thing's going to lead. It's time for the WWE Championship match once again as The Miz defends against Bobby Lashley. But as soon as the bell rings, Miz bails, grabs the belt, and hightails it out of there, takes a count-out loss, which means he gets to keep the championship. And so, again, more sneaky heel bullshit by The Miz. And speaking of bullshit, the MVP even tells Shane backstage, this is bullshit, and it doesn't get censored, so that was kind of a surprise. But Shane is on their side and says, either we'll give another match or we'll consider stripping The Miz of the championship and awarding it to Lashley. So, again, they're just stretching this thing out. They're just delaying the inevitable, and I'm just really hopeful that the payoff is worth it. So Charlotte Flair makes her way to the ring for her match with Shayna Baszler. But before that, though, she's on the microphone and says she would like to challenge Asuka for the Raw Women's title at WrestleMania, since Bianca Belair made her choice to challenge Sasha Banks on SmackDown. But Asuka's injured presently, and something I didn't even know about on Raw last week until after I already posted my review was this disgusting injury she suffered from when Shayna Baszler kicked her in the face, and 2 or 3 of her teeth went flying out of her mouth all at once. It looked just horrible to see. So yeah, hopefully Asuka will be better in time for WrestleMania. Time will tell. Hope she just gets better, period, because that looked absolutely painful and devastating. Shayna and Nia then make their way out to the ring, and they remind Charlotte that nobody likes her and that she needs to get to the back of the line. The tag champs jump Charlotte before the match begins. We go to break, and the match happens. Pretty short and sweet here. Charlotte evades a Nia attack on the outside and hits natural selection on Shayna to win the match. So, whether or not Asuka's ready for WrestleMania or not, one thing is clear, and that Charlotte Flair is definitely the top of the pecking order still. Retribution take on Riddle and Lucha House Party in a 6-man tag match. Not a pretty short match here. It ends with a cool double team move by Lince Dorado and Gran Metalik on Slapjack to win for their team. Mustafa Ali is pissed at his guys once again. And by the way, to those who keep trying to correct me on the comments section, it's Mustafa Ali, not Mustafa. Clearly you've not been watching the product for the last few months, have you? Anyway, so Mustafa's pissed and he wants to show his guys how it's done, challenges Riddle to an impromptu match, so it's non-title and it happens here. Riddle gets his arm worked over, but he is able to fight back. In the end, though, Mace distracts him, and that allows Mustafa to hit something off the top rope, kind of involving his knees, onto Riddle for the win. Big upset victory by Ali here, and I think it's kind of cool. It's nice and refreshing to see somebody from Retribution get a win these days, showing his underlings how it's done. And the idea of a Riddle-Ali feud for the U.S. title is something that's very intriguing to me. So let's see how they continue this storyline. So backstage, The Miz confronts Shane McMahon about the edict that if he does not defend the championship, he'll be stripped of it. And so The Miz talks about how much the brand of WWE would be ruined if he he were to lose the championship here, and all the different things he's done for this company and how much respect he deserves and how he deserves to go to WrestleMania. And he asks Shane, what kind of champion could Bobby Lashley be? And Shane with a great line, he's saying, I don't know, Miz, but perhaps we're about to find out. And that was a great comeback by Shane here, but I'm like, so wait a minute. Is Shane face or heel? I'm so dreadfully confused by this right now. In your main event, take 3 for the WWE Championship as The Miz defends against Bobby Lashley, and he tries to bail again, but Shane comes out and makes it a lumberjack match. So most of the roster comes out and surrounds the ring as the match begins. Miz tries to DQ himself, but he fails. He gets beaten up and tries to plead for help from the lumberjacks, but they offer no sympathy, and it's all Lashley here at this point. He slams him down, he puts him in the hurt lock, and Miz taps out immediately, and Lashley wins. Lashley is your new WWE champion. Holy crap, it's awesome just to say that and to see it. It's so amazing after the journey Lashley has been on, and I think it's awesome. The road we took to get here tonight, this one singular episode, I think was really well done. Miz is getting more and more sneaky and slimy, trying to get out of it in all these new and interesting ways. And Lashley and MVP and ultimately Shane McMahon keep shutting him down. And and Lashley gets redemption. He basically gets what's owed to him after helping Miz win the championship at the pay-per-view. Finally, Lashley getting his due as champion. Something that he should have been in line for within like a month of his return a couple of years ago. Think of all the shit that Lashley has been through just since coming back. He was in that god-awful storyline with Sami Zayn with Bobby's sisters and that ridiculous angle. And then he was in some programs with guys like Finn Balor and Roman Reigns that he looked good in the matches but didn't really ultimately go anywhere with it. He won the Intercontinental Championship once, I think. He had a whole gimmick where he would just bend over and point at his ass for his opening his in-ring entrance with Leo Rush at his side, which actually Leo Rush was cool as the manager. But besides that though, the whole point of the ass thing was stupid. And then he lines up with MVP. He's in the Hurt business. They're doing well. He's the U.S. champion. He's not pinned to lose the belt. He becomes the WWE champion within 8 days later. You couldn't ask for a better trajectory for Bobby Lashley in the last year for him. And it's just so cool to see it happening now. Things are looking great for him. And now it seems to be lined up for him and potentially Drew McIntyre and also potentially Brock, because that seems to be the rumor, at WrestleMania for the championship. Brock I'm not so hot about, but I'm seeing Lashley and Drew fight for the championship at Mania. I'm very excited about that. You'll love to see it. My grade for this week's Raw is a B+. I got to give it extra points just for the single night arc of Lashley finally getting his against The Miz after chasing him all night and then winning the championship. Great validation. And again, something he really should have been doing way, way, way sooner than he ended up doing in 2021. Great satisfying payoff. And the opener with Sheamus and Drew McIntyre was, again, a great pay-per-view quality match. I could watch those guys have a match like that constantly. It was that good. The only thing that's really troubling me right now with Raw from the last couple of weeks is just what is Shane McMahon's game? He's kind of it's just tonight alone he played both sides, healing on Strowman, presumably, but also being a babyface against The Miz. And of course, those two have a history, so I can see why Shane would target The Miz so. But I think that's the only thing I really have against Raw this week at least, is wondering what the Shane angle is going to be. But besides that, though, I think the show started strong and it ended strong in a very good way, and I can't fault that. But what did you all think of this week's Raw, folks? What do you think of Bobby Lashley as the new WWE champion? I think it's a long time coming, but I want to hear what you all have to say in the comment section below. And one final comment about The Miz. Now, I'm sure along with many of you at home watching this, are disappointed that The Miz was just a transitional champion in all this. He only held the belt for 8 days after so long he spent in the drought between championship wins, and as long as he held the briefcase as well. But I think transitional champions can still be an important part of wrestling, and I think The Miz, for as briefly as he held the championship all told, still played his role very well. I think he was the perfect slimy, skeezy foil to Bobby Lashley for him to get that redemption and get the championship. And The Miz, I'm still happy he won the belt, and he'll only have for 8 days, but they can't take that away from him. And I think he gets he deserves a lot of credit for being that transition role from Drew to Bobby here. But again, that's my thoughts on it. I want to hear what you have to say about it. I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.